This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. What are your self-care non-negotiables? For me, it's therapy, and BetterHelp makes it easy to get started with affordable online sessions you can do from anywhere. Learn more at BetterHelp.com. That's BetterHelp.com. Did you know there are other magical sports besides Quidditch? Hey, brother! Do you know what always stood out to me as a little bit odd in the wizarding world? Is that Quidditch seems to be their only sport. Like, even when you were first introduced to it, Hagrid phrases it as, "It's our sport, wizard sport. It's like soccer in the Muggle world. Everyone follows Quidditch, played up in the air on broomsticks, and there's 4 balls. Sort of hard to explain the rules." He says it's as if it's the only one, which is just totally bananas. I mean, with a culture as old as theirs and all of the creativity allowed by magic, how could there not be like tons of sports? Sure, yes, the population is a lot lower, so fielding tons of pro athletes might be difficult. I mean, I think we recently did a video showing that as much as 20% of the entire wizarding population in the UK could reasonably expect to be a pro Quidditch player if they wanted to. But still, just one sport? I mean, there are ways to be competitively gifted with magic that are not, flying around on brooms. I mean, that is a very specific set of skills that excludes a lot of otherwise very competitive people, and maybe even a few Hufflepuffs.
Got him.
Got him. Well, good news, you guys. I've been doing some digging into the world of magical sports, and it turns out there are, in fact, a lot of other sports you could get into as a youth in the wizarding world. Surprisingly, they don't offer a majority of these sports at Hogwarts or anything for whatever reason, but hey, the school's already hosting, 6 whole Quidditch games a year. I mean, when are they supposed to work in anything else? What are they, magic? Wait. Anyway, today we are going to go over all of the other magical games and sports in the wizarding world. By the way, before we dive into today's video, just a quick reminder that our podcast, Through the Griffin Door, is going on tour to the West Coast this September. We're traveling all the way from Seattle down to Los Angeles, so if you want to come check it out and see us live, tickets are in the description below. Okay, this was a crazy video to research because I learned so many new, real, canon things about the wizarding world that I had never heard of. And I do what I do, and I've been doing this for a decade. So buckle up, because wizards have some weird games. But let's be sure to cover our bases, and we're going to kick off with just some basic wizard games I'm sure you've at least heard of, even if you don't know what they are. Although I am sure that you have heard of our first one, Wizard's Chess.
That's Wizard's Chess.
Honestly, I almost didn't even include this in the list because it's the exact same as Muggle chess, except for just saying the moves out loud and the pieces, hitting each other. But honestly, Muggles play chess this way too, and sometimes they don't even use a board if they're really good. They can just play in their mind, which to me seems like way more of a magic trick. So yeah, I was gonna skip it, but how could I make a video about magical games and not include this clip about, who? It's
Not me, not Hermione, you.
Fun fact, we got all the audiences to do that on tour. Just another reason to come see us. Next up, let's talk gobstones. Yeah, the other club you can actually join at Hogwarts, although I wouldn't count on it to earn you a very cool reputation. In fact, possibly just the opposite, and it's kind of easy to see why. Because gobstones, much like Wizard's Chess, is kind of a worse version of the original game, and in this case, the original game is marbles. And it's literally the same game. The only difference is that if you lose a point in gobstones, one of the stones will spray you in the face with a foul-smelling liquid. And as losing a point in marbles is almost guaranteed on every turn, yeah, you can bet you're gonna get sprayed, so prepare to smell. Which feels like a good time to bring up today's sponsor, Axe Body Spray. No, I'm just kidding. But they did sponsor last year's Gobstone World Cup, so. Okay, no, they didn't. But yes, there are actually national Gobstone teams in the wizarding world. So even despite what the game is, it is popular enough for international play, which then got me wondering, are there real life world championship marble competitions like here in the Muggle world? And the answer is yes, absolutely yes, there are, and it is a huge deal. I mean, just look at this attendance. That has got to be like tens of people?
There are dozens of us. Dozens!
And yet, Gobstones is a sponsored club at Hogwarts, unlike our next sport, dueling. Yes, I know, they had that one dueling club meeting that one time, but that sort of seemed to also be the entire start and end of the dueling club at Hogwarts. Can you just imagine the end of year competition? Hogwars? But it is almost unbelievable they don't have a dueling club at Hogwarts when you consider that we know it's a competitive sport because we know Flitwick was a dueling champion. And it just seems like it would be wildly popular in a high school full of kids who were suddenly allowed to cast spells at each other in a somewhat practical and controlled way that also helps develop defense against the dark arts skills. But hey, who needs dueling when you got gobstones, right? Moving on though, next of course we have Exploding Snap, a game Harry and his friends play a lot of, and yet the rules are never really explained to us, the audience. My understanding of it for the longest time was just that it was just see if you can build a card castle with the whole deck before they explode. But that's not it, even at all. It's actually more of a matching game with a very specific set of cards. So it's not like a regular set of playing cards. But after you reveal one card, you have to frantically find the match before the first one explodes. Who knew? Although speaking of regular playing cards, those are also of interest to wizards because we know Hagrid goes to play cards down to the village and he's presumably just gambling as any other muggle would, although I have to imagine there's a lot more cheating in wizard poker. But really, those are all more games, I suppose, than sports. I mean, maybe dueling's a sport, but from here, let's get back on the broom and examine some games I bet you have never heard of. First up, let's talk about Sweven Hodge, because I just don't see how this sport isn't just way more popular. Sweven Hodge is played on broomsticks, but the players actually sit backwards on the broom, so the sweepy part is out in front. The brush. That's what it's called, the brush. The brush is in front. Okay, so the brush of your broom is then also acting like your racket, and the game is kind of similar to tennis where each player is on one side of a hedge and they're using the brushes of the brooms to hit a pig's bladder back and forth, and if you miss it, the other person gets a point. First to 50 wins. 50? God, that is an insanely high number, and I suspect the reason the game didn't catch on because otherwise, how could this not catch on? It just sounds super fun, and with a name like Sweven Hodge, you just know the sport is brimming with all those nonsense words for all the tricks and maneuvers the players are doing.
And welcome back everyone to ESPN 9 3/4. We're in the middle of a heated Sweven Hodge match between McLagan and Weasley. Let's just jump right into it. And here comes McLagan now off the hedge bounce. Nice broom boo for the return, but no! Weasley's not to be fooled. He scoots forward and just look at that whisk whack. The absolute precision. And it's a bladder flop. Truly a deflating bladder flop against McLagan. That's point Weasley. Oh, and he lets off a few swivel words for the crowd. And why not? This is what they came for.
Why not? I love it. It's so good. Oh, thank you. If anyone needs me, I'll be out back working on my backhand swivel flick. I'm sorry, but there is without doubt a very dedicated Sweven Hodge fan base in the UK. Less fun sounding, however, is our next game. I don't even want to try and pronounce Creathian. This game, though, is actually now outlawed in the Wizarding world, and it is very easy to see why. It was invented in Scotland and meant to be the supreme test of manliness and courage. Creathian players would strap a cauldron to their heads, opened end up, so not like a helmet or anything. Then they mount their broomsticks and fly around and try and catch rocks/boulders in the cauldron that had been otherwise floating magically high above the game before it started. So, as you can imagine, there were many fatalities. I mean, blood force trauma. Who knew? But speaking of wearing hats that aren't cauldrons, let's take a brief moment to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Shopify. One of the most interesting aspects about running a business is that you are destined to wear more hats than you ever expected. So in our case, you create a piece of content someone wants to hear or watch, which is challenge enough, right? But no, there's way more to it than that, because you also have to be a bookkeeper and an HR manager and a marketing department and the graphic designer and a web designer and that last one, web designer, designer, that can be the weird barrier between having like a great product, but just no way good to make it available to potential customers. However, that is the exact moment when Shopify steps in to save the freaking day. Shopify makes it easy whether you're selling out of a garage basement or you have like, forklifts in a warehouse and stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't have that. You think they have like a basketball hoop over in the corner? You think they'll let me play? I wish I had a basketball hoop. But my personal favorite feature of Shopify is the data, because wearing all those different hats means when it comes time to make decisions about what products to offer next versus what isn't doing that well, calls for information. And boy, does the suite of reports offer that from Shopify. I mean, you can customize and export information in seconds from just about any perspective you can imagine. So sign up today for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/SCB, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/SCB now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/SCB. Link is in the description down below. All these sports are coming from Quidditch Through the Ages, by the way, in case you're wondering where I unearthed all these very crazy, very real wizard sports. Next up is another one you may have actually heard of, and again, one I can't believe is not at Hogwarts because it's just Broom Racing. Heck, the Firebolt isn't even marketed as a Quidditch broom. This state-of-the-art racing broom sports a streamlined, superfine handle of ash, treated with a diamond hand polish and hand-numbered with all of its own blah, blah, blah. You know the rest. The point is, it says racing broom, which means broom racing is a very real thing. And actually, going back to Quidditch Through the Ages, this is confirmed. And in fact, there are some famous races, or at least one famous race. The very otherwise uncreatively named Annual Broom Race of Sweden. Sounds fun. And look, you're not going to want to miss this race. It goes all the way from Kopparberg to Arjelpog, which are just very real places, I think. I don't even know. These could be made up wizard towns, or they could be real places in Sweden. Arjelpog, Sweden. Either way, the race takes over just 300 miles, meaning that if you were on a Firebolt, which tops out at 150 miles per hour, you could finish the race in just 2 hours. This race in particular is noted for its course, which runs straight through a dragon reservation, meaning that racers have to look out for Swedish short snouts. But if they win, they get a huge silver trophy in the shape of a Swedish short snout. So there is some whimsy in the sport, despite the really boring name. But honestly, watching an endurance broom race seems way more fun than watching Muggle distance races where you can, really only see the racers once, when they pass you. But for witches and wizards, you just apparate to the next checkpoint to see what's happening. Also, Muggles can just watch on TV. So. That said, not all broom racing is long distance. There is a shorter variety of broom racing known as Engen. Why is everything in this video so hard to say? Engen. Aingingin. Engen is how I'm going to say it, but it is more of a time trial based obstacle course style of racing. So how it works is basically each racer would carry a ball known as the Dom, and they race as fast as they can through a series of flaming barrels, and then you have to throw the Dom through the final flaming barrel, and whoever has the fastest time is the winner. Although, side note, the Dom is not actually a ball, it is a gallbladder of a goat. So cool. But hey, speaking of using animal innards and wacky wizard sports you haven't heard of but do exist, next up we've got Stitch Stock. And yes, I know that Muggle sports also use things like animal bladders in their origins. I just think it's funny. Stitch Stock, at least in its origin, involves placing an inflated dragon bladder, which, well, I can't imagine how they were harvesting that. Either way, you put the inflated bladder on the top of a 20-foot pole. Then you have one defender on broomstick who has a 10-foot rope tied around their waist and the other end to the pole, so they can only ever get 10 feet away. Then, one by one, attackers will take turns trying to get around the defender and puncture the dragon bladder with the sharpened end of their broomstick. The defender is allowed to use their wand to repel attackers, and the game ends when either all the attackers have failed or one manages to get past them and puncture the bladder. Or if the defender gets skewered on the broomstick. I can imagine this game catching on, the issue being that you have to keep harvesting more and more dragon bladders. It just doesn't seem easy. That just leaves us with one final game to discuss. Shunt Bumps. This is a game that is usually played more by children and not very high in the air, but the idea is to try and knock every other player off of their broomstick, and whoever is the last one standing is the winner. And I gotta tell you, I bet wizard parents just love Shunt Bumps. I mean, it is a game that I'm sure ends with lots of hearty pats on the back, fair play, and not any screaming, crying, or constantly broken bones at all, ever. Shunt Bumps! But there you go, guys. That is every other known wizarding game or sport in the wizarding world outside of like other challenge-based tournaments like the Tri-Wizard tournament where the games are always changing. But I still find myself a little surprised by the lack of other kinds of competition, like especially watching the Olympics for the past couple of weeks, like long distance spellcasting seems like it would be a thing, or like Patronus racing, or hippogriff dressage, or broom high diving, or steeplechase, which I know that's just a Muggle sport, but you know, wizards can run too. You think wizards don't care about who can run the fastest? Come on. Well, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. Don't forget to leave a like on it if you haven't already, and subscribe so you don't miss any future Harry Potter content from us. If you want to see an entire video breaking down why Quidditch makes no sense at all, you can check out this video right here. And don't forget, our podcast Through the Griffin Door is going on tour this September. Tickets are in the link in the description down below. But Ben, until next time, I will see you in another life.